So speaking about healthcare in general, what role does a leader in a company or an owner or C-level or whatever have in the health of their staff? So if you look at historically, like with what Japan culturally has done with their companies, where they'll have everybody outside exercising, and you know, as Americans, we're like, oh, what a waste of time, and then you find out, oh, it extends their life and also makes them happier at work. What you know, if we move forward and like, okay, all this healthcare, and then also the financial literacy, how do we tie that in? What role do we have as leaders in our companies to make sure our staff can afford and don't outpace their money?
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on how you look at your staff. You know, the CEOs that I talked to today, of course, they wouldn't tell you this publicly, but fundamentally, they're trying to get rid of people, right? Because people cost, right? They want to take vacation, they want to take time off, they want benefits. So if I have systems, automated systems, all I need is a mechanic, a software engineer, whatever. That's a lower cost of activity. And you know, it's just like in manufacturing. You know, I hear everybody from, you know, President-elect to others saying, well, we're going to bring manufacturing back to the United States, but not the way it is today.
A button.
That's
guy
right.
pushing a button.
I mean, you know, I was involved in a program for the Dallas College that was about automated manufacturing. In the first classes, we had maybe 25 kids. By the time they graduate, you maybe have 5. Either they're, you know, personality-wise, whatever, they didn't like it, but the mentality of that automated manufacturing operator today is a multi-talented person. They can design the job, cost the job, run the job, you know, and they can program the job. In the old days, you know, I was in the old steel industry. I used to pour ingots for steel I-beams. I loved that job. It was great. But you know what? You'd be crazy to do it today with a bunch of human beings because it's much safer if you have machines, rollers and all that, and automated ingots to pour the steel and so forth.
There's no adrenaline rush now.
That's right.
But back when you did it, there was all that adrenaline.
Well, you know, of course, in the old days, you know, being football players, we all wanted to lift steel so we could, you know, do better on the football field. But I think the scenario now, and I think we've talked about this in the past, is that in the United States, there's only 10 steel companies. And those steel companies, except for one, are all owned by foreign concerns, either Turkish, Russian, or somebody else, some coalition group. United Steel is the last one. They're thinking about selling to the Japanese, which is kind of a debate now. And so you got to ask yourself, in a core industry, which we prided ourselves, we had a core industry. If we don't own that industry anymore, so what does that mean on a global scale? What does that mean for defense of the country? What does that mean for the production of ships, cars, and all the other things out there? Does that mean we're less competitive? Does that mean we're more vulnerable? I think all those questions still have to be answered. But for manufacturing, you're not going to have, like when I was in the steel industry in the 70s, I think the United Steel Workers Union was 650,000. If they've got 60,000 now, that may be one too many. But it's a much smaller organization, because you know, you don't need that many people to make steel. And I think this is true in any manufacturing, whether you're doing plastics, whether you're doing microchips. You know, I have a nephew that works for Intel, and just talked to him the other day, and one of the things in Intel, you know, created a $10 billion expansion in their plant. But compared to Taiwan Semiconductor, who expanded $100 billion, it's no competition. And Intel is cutting back. So what is that telling you? Now, they're trying to, I think, compete with NVIDIA on the AI chips. So, and right now they're not having a lot of success on that chip. So when you think about it, that's all automated manufacturing that really needs talented people with an eye for engineering and quality, and making sure that the outcome of whatever is being produced is an excellent product, you know.
So, do you think that's a universal law from all time, where you're, as a company, you're always trying to reduce costs, whether that be through
Oh,
staff,
absolutely.
increasing efficiency with processes and
Well,
technology?
let's talk about China. Okay, I have lots of experience in China. I went to China 6 months after Nixon did when I was in college. So 1972, Nixon goes to China. 6 months later, Jim Williams goes. You know, all my classmates didn't think I was coming back. You know, but over the years, it gave me an opportunity to see how China expanded. You know, when I first went to Shenzhen and Guangzhou area, which is southeast China, the manufacturing centers, they were all kind of sleepy towns. You know, Guangzhou was a bigger town, but it was still very sleepy. If you go to Shenzhen today, it's the biggest manufacturing hub in the world. And they did that at our request. See, everybody thinks that, well, the Chinese have done something that we didn't want. No. Manufacturers in the United States wanted the lowest cost of production. You know, I walked through Walmart the other day, and I said, let me see how many things are made in China. I didn't find anything that wasn't made in China.
Right.
You know, and I remember when Sam Walton was alive, everything had to be made in the USA. Well, Alice doesn't believe in that, so, or the other holders of the trust there. So, and it's all about lowest cost of production. And I think every CEO thinks about that. What's the lowest cost of production and the highest margin that I can get?